Francis we met?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
He was the chairman of the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
No, of the Open.
Yep.
He wasn't active in the Ryder, but he was chairman of the Open.
At the Open. When it was at Brookline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in charge of press relations and parking.
Yeah.
Does Charlie Devon's name mean
That
anything?
sounds familiar.
Well, he was the first Harvard graduate to play professional baseball
Okay.
with the Yankees.
Yeah.
And he fell in love with a prominent local citizen, and the father said, "You can't marry my daughter until you leave the Yankees."
That sounds like a typical Red Sox type thing.
So his name was Charlie Devons. He lived a very exclusive life.
Yeah.
He only ate lunch at 3 places: Lockover's, the country club, and somewhere else.
Oh, jeez.
He was quite a character.
It sounds that way. Yeah, my dad went to school with a guy named Clem Levine.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to the University of Rhode Island, but my dad went to school in Rhode Island, and he went to school with a guy who pitched for the Brooklyn Dodgers named Clem Levine.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be good friends. They caused the nuns used to get after them a lot, so they had a little bit of a reputation. You tell me when you're
We're getting close.
Just watch your right side.
ready. Okay, we're all set. Tell me about 1939 and how you were called up in 1939, which was 2 years prior.
Okay. I came home from playing golf, and my mother was crying. I said, "What's the trouble?" She said, "You've been ordered to active duty effective tomorrow in the office of General Marshal." So I went in the next morning, resigned my job with public accounting, and took the Federal Express down and reported for duty the next morning and the office of the Chief of Staff. And my boss said to me, "Take the day off, find a place to live, and come ready to work tomorrow." That's how it started.
Were you aware in 1939 of what was going on in Europe?
Yes.
What were your thoughts about? Did you think that we were going to go to war?
Well, that was, General Marshall became Chief of Staff the day the war started in Europe. So he was right there at the start.
And what did you think? Were you aware of Europe? What were the events going on in Europe? Was that something you were interested in?
Well, we were following all these things very closely. We didn't know what would happen. But things got scary, and on Pearl Harbor Day, I was having a cocktail party, and they called up and said that Pearl Harbor had happened. General Marshall was going to the White House, and we were ordered to come in uniform the next day.
A lot of GIs said they didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was when it was attacked.
That's right.
Were you familiar with Pearl Harbor, having worked in the office?
No.
And what were your thoughts? Were you surprised? Were you not surprised? What?
No. It just happened, and I guess we thought something would happen, but we didn't expect Pearl Harbor because they weren't ready. They sent them a warning the night before, but it didn't get there in time.
And what was it like in Marshall's office when it happened and with all the chaos that you witnessed and everything, knowing that the United States was now at war?
Right.
Talk about the chaos that was going on.
Well, there wasn't any chaos there. We just started to get ready. Call the National Guard, past civil service. It was a very busy time and lots happening. President Roosevelt was very active. So every day we were working from 7 days a week, from 7 in the morning till 6 at night, and often at night.
And what was your role at that time?
I was in what is called statistics, where we made sure what was going on. For instance, I kept reports of casualties, and I had a lot of secret information, but you're in the inside of all that was going on.
How did you get assigned to Marshall's office and his staff? You're called up.
Well, one of his assistants had been my ROTC instructor at Harvard, where I got my commission as a second lieutenant field artillery reserve. So when he needed to increase his staff, he picked on me. I've been reserve officer for 3 years, promoted to first lieutenant.
From 1939, let's say, into the first year or two of the war, how did your job change, or how did your role change, or did it on his staff?
Well, we got a lot more information on various subjects, casualties, a lot of top secret information. I made charts for him. It was very busy, and I used to write up a lot of memorandums on subjects of interest and send them in. I was also very close to the legislative branch that worked with the Capitol. General Marshall had to go up to the Capitol quite often. All promotions to the rank of general had to be approved by Congress. I kept the records of the generals, where everyone was.
Statistics such as casualties
Yep.
were very, as you mentioned, very top secret and very guarded. Even when Pearl Harbor happened, there was no sense of the widespread amount of men who had died or become casualties. And that a lot of the times was for morale purposes and so on and so forth. How much of a secret was that in the office, and how did that affect you looking at those lists, knowing that telegrams are going to be going out soon to a lot of people?
I felt very badly, but my job was to keep track of how many there were and how many replacements would be needed. They activated a whole bunch of divisions and picked people. I was in the office when General Marshall picked Eisenhower to come up. He had him come up right after the Pearl Harbor. He had one of his officers call him up. He was down in Texas as chief of staff of the 3rd Division. He got a telephone call, "Get up here tomorrow." We took the train up that night.
What was the atmosphere like in Washington at that time?
Well, we'd all been in civilian clothes, and then we were told to show up in uniform, so the city looked quite different.
So it went from a civilian population to a military population pretty much overnight on December 7th.
That's right. Those who were in the military. But we were all in civilian clothes.
Was there a lot of tension?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to describe it. We were just very busy getting things done, getting selective service through. General Marshall was surrounded by a lot of remarkable people. I mean, Eisenhower worked for him. Smith was a major in the office when I was there. Bradley was a major. He signed my honeymoon orders. I got engaged the first summer I was there. I met a girl at a church supper. We had a romance and got married September before Pearl Harbor.
General Marshall seemed to surround himself with very good people.
Yeah. Did
he have an instinct for that?
Well, he knew all these people. So when he'd move them in and then he'd move them out and give them command. Bradley was a major when I first met him, and then Marshall called him in one day and said, "You're going down to Fort Benning to be commandant of the infantry school." And then he went on to command a division. And he had some interesting experiences. One of the divisions was the 29th Division from Maryland. It was having a lot of trouble, and he was assigned to it. And one day, they had to make a march of 25 miles, and he put on a private's uniform, and one of the other privates said to him, "You look sort of old to be marching 25 miles today." He didn't know that he was talking to the division commander. And then when he was ready to go overseas, Marshall decided to ship him to North Africa. And that's where Patton took over, and then Patton was succeeded by Bradley.
What did you think of Eisenhower?
I didn't know him too well, but I think he did a good job.
You didn't have any interaction with him in the office for the most part?
No. He was head of what is known as war plans. The day he came in, Marshall said to him, "We're having trouble in the Philippines. I want you to give me a plan to what we should do." Marshall said to General Marshall, he said, "General, give me a couple of hours and I'll be back with a plan." 2 hours later, he had a plan, which was to send MacArthur to Australia, because they knew they couldn't keep the Philippines.
They couldn't keep Corregidor. When you look at General Marshall, Harry Truman called him one of the most important people of the 20th century.
Right.
And one of the greatest people of the 20th century. Do you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, I mean, he went on to be Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, and he was active in the removal of General MacArthur. That was very interesting. Truman gathered together his key financial advisors, and he said, "I think Truman should go." And the fellow who took his place, the fellow who was out there, was interesting. He learned about going to Korea. He was at a cocktail party, and he got a telephone call saying, "General MacArthur wants you tomorrow." So a lot of interesting things like that.
Managing a two-front war is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Was Marshall the right guy to do it? History says yes. What do you think?
I think so, because he'd worked for MacArthur, but now he was MacArthur's boss. MacArthur was very difficult, but how long is this going to take, do you think?
Are you getting tired?
A glass of water, girl?
You want a glass of water?
No, not yet.
You let me know when you want to stop.
Well, how long do you think you want to go?
I don't know. It's up to you. I could talk to you for 3 days.
No, well.
But but if you're getting tired, I can stop in like 10 minutes.
Why don't we do that?
Okay, that's fine. What, as far as General Marshall, what made him such a good leader in terms of being able to deal with men like Eisenhower on one hand, MacArthur and Patton on the other hand, Beadle Smith, all those men, what made him such a good manager that Roosevelt would not let him go and fight in the war?
Well, I guess he had all those years of experience, and he wanted to go, but he had a meeting with President Roosevelt in Cairo, Egypt, and they were alone, and the president said, "I don't think I could get along without you." So he made the decision, and Marshall had him sign a paper and initial it, and when he got out, he gave it to Eisenhower and said, "Here is the decision for you to take this."
For Normandy.
But a lot of the things were tough. I mean, dealing with Stalin was very difficult. How much have you read about World War II?
A little bit. A little bit. How did he deal with Stalin? It was not. Uncle Joe was not an easy guy to deal with.
Well, actually, the person who dealt with him the most was Harry Hopkins. What Roosevelt did was he didn't feel well enough to go and see Churchill and Stalin, so he said, Hopkins, he said, "This is my personal assistant. He represents me personally." So they'd see him.
What was your involvement with the Marshall Plan?
I was gone by then.
You were gone by then.
I came afterwards. I wasn't there.
A lot of veterans that we ask talk about that time period as a time America came together for the common good, and everybody played a role, whether they were a soldier or on the home front.
Right.
How do you feel when people say that you're a hero for what you did?
Oh, I'm not a hero. I just did a job. I was pretty far down the line. But I wrote a lot of stuff for General Marshall to read. For example, the giving out of decorations was handled very differently by different commanders. I wrote a memo to the general saying, "This guy doesn't give out any medals, and this guy gives them to everybody." So he gave instructions on how medals should be given.
The preference was always to fight Europe first, to take care of Hitler first.
Absolutely.
Was that the right strategy, and how much was that discussed in the office?
Well,
because you had MacArthur saying, "I need this, I need this, I need this," and
well, this was done at a higher level, at the White House and the Chiefs of Staff. See, what they did, they created what were known as the Chiefs of Staff, which had 4 Americans and 4 British, and they were the ones that conducted the war. And the 4 Americans were the Chief of Staff to President Roosevelt, Admiral Leahy, Admiral King of the Air Force, of the Navy, and Admiral Arnold of the Army. I mean the Air Force. And they interacted with 4 British people. They ran the war.
You ever think back and say, I kind of had a front row seat
Yeah.
on a lot of things that...
A front row seat in the back row. See, at a certain point, my boss was promoted. Eventually, I became chief of the office. Wrote stuff. A lot of work was done with Congress all the time. They had to approve everything.
Are you the last surviving member of the staff?
Yes. Yeah, I am. I wrote the Marshall Foundation that I'm the last survivor. I may get a little publicity on that. They're all dead.
You think about that time a lot?
Yeah, I think of it a lot. Very. Well, it was a thrilling experience to be there right from the start to the finish. The day I left the service was the day General Marshall retired. I was called up to his office and he decorated 3 reserve officers. One of them was a VMI graduate who was his secretary and general staff of the colonel. He decorated with the Distinguished Service Medal. And the other was the chief of the Message Center. He decorated with the chief of the Medal Center. And I was a lieutenant colonel, so I got the another medal. They took pictures of us. I have the picture upstairs.
2 final questions, okay?
Go
2
ahead.
final questions. 1, was there ever a sense in the office at any time that we were going to lose the war?
No, never. We knew we were going to win, but it was going to be tough. What's your other question?
Did you talk about it after the war? Did you tell your family about your role in the war, or was it kind of...
Not very much.
Why?
I don't think they were that interested. My father was a doctor. He's practicing medicine, and we were busy raising 4 children. We had 4 children while I was down there. You know how you have a child easy when you're in the Army? You can have a baby at Walter Reed Hospital for nothing. You write a letter to the commanding general and you say, my dependent wife is pregnant and I want to have the baby at Walter Reed. And if you're soon enough, you get an endorsement back approving it. And then when she begins labor, you ship her in.
I'll remember that. I lied. I do have one more question.
One second. Gorm, you might want to ask this question, but didn't you have something to do with the troops on how they left after the armistice? How they left and came back to the U.S.?
I came home pretty quick.
Yeah. What about the other servicemen? Were you involved in that process? Okay. Sorry.
So I got out quickly.
When they refer to your generation, as Tom Brokaw did, as the greatest generation, how do you take that?
Well, I think that it's true. I mean, when you consider all the important people that were there, the President Truman, all the important senators and generals, and all the elections that went on, and President Roosevelt was remarkable. Have you read any life of him?
I have. And did you... I keep lying. I keep saying this is the last question, but I promise this is the last question.
No problem.
The end of the war, dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel as though if that wasn't done, I mean, that it had to be done, this had to be the way to end the war?
Absolutely. The plan was for an invasion of Japan would be a very difficult and expensive. I mean, you'd need, they planned for 2 armies, the 6th and the 8th, and probably 2 million men. And I didn't know too much about the bomb until near the end, but General Marshall was in very close touch with it. The general who ran that used to come in and see him about every few weeks and keep him in touch. I asked what it was, and they wouldn't tell me till the end. One of my classmates at business school was at that island when they took the bomb. The general was there. 150,000 people were killed. Okay.
We're done. Don't get up, though.
Okay.
You were wonderful. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
You were one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Getting a little warm in here, huh?
Yeah, those lights are hot.
Yeah.
Come on, Mom, we get some soda or something?
Want some water?
I'm fine.
You sure?
What can I get you people?
Calvados? Calvados?
What's that?
It's Calvados.
Calvados is a French.
You want a Coke?
No. Yeah, I'll take a Coke.
Yeah.
Go in the ice chest.
Okay. Calvados is a French